everyone, Landrie Etheridge here with Etheridge Counseling Group in Charleston, South Carolina. Today we're joined by Claire Mixon, a therapist here, and we're talking all about perfectionism. And I've had the honor of reading your recent article on this topic, and so I've got a few questions for you. So I'm just going to dive right in and ask the first one. So Claire, in the blog, you talk about hidden perfectionism.
Mm-hmm.
How is that different from the stereotype most of us think of when we hear the word perfectionism?
Yeah, so hidden perfectionism it's more subtle. So often we think the stereotype is like a color-coded calendar, like a perfectly organized closet, and someone who pays attention to every tiny detail. But hidden perfectionism is more internal, and it's having really high standards for yourself that often become debilitating because you can never reach those standards, and so creates a lot of internal turmoil, but it's not as recognizable.
But not as recognizable. It's sort of more this internal than sort of the external that other people might be noticing too. That makes sense. So you describe my second question is, you describe the anxiety perfectionism cycle, and you do that so clearly in your article. Can you walk us through how that loop actually plays out in someone's daily life? What might that look like?
Yeah, so kind of what I said before, internally we set a really high standard for ourselves, usually one that's nearly impossible to meet. That's where the perfectionism, no one's perfect. And when we inevitably don't meet that goal, you start to doubt yourself. You start to question, why can't I do this? What's going to happen if I can't meet this goal? That starts the anxiety. And then people usually lean into one of two responses. One is over functioning. So you over prepare, you overthink, you plan way in advance, or you lead into avoidance, where you procrastinate or you numb or you escape. Me too. And with both of those things create even more anxiety. And then it becomes just like a loop. You become critical of yourself, and it's really hard to get out of.
That makes a lot of sense. And I raised my hand. It sounds very familiar to me as well.
Me too.
So I love the part where you said perfectionism often starts as protection, which is an interesting concept. Can you explain what you mean by that?
Yeah, so I think a lot of it starts when we're young, and we're learning how to exist in relationships, often with our family members. So I think some common ways that it can develop are if you learn that you get praised when you achieve, then that becomes really tied to your self-worth. So you learn that you need to achieve in order to get positive attention from your family. Another one is if you are criticized when you make mistakes, then you learn you can never make mistakes. You avoid that shame response by trying to be perfect.
Just being perfect, yeah.
Yeah, and then the third way is if you're not allowed to feel emotions in your family, then you just completely push them away and really focus on just I'm going to be competent, I'm going to be an achiever.
Yeah, and that's all very familiar from what I see sort of in the therapy room, and I'm sure you see a lot of this as well.
Yeah.
We both work with millennial women so much, and that is a common experience. So when someone realizes that their anxiety might be rooted in perfectionism, maybe, and then also probably stemming from those early family experiences, what does healing look like typically in therapy?
Yeah, one is to really soften that inner critic, so that we start to criticize ourselves when we don't live up to these standards. So, and that voice can get really loud. So really working on softening that inner critic, leaning into self-compassion. So that's unconditional. So really trying to care about yourself, to have care for yourself even when you fail. And then also just redefining your standards, that sometimes good enough is okay, because we're never going to be perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think this topic is so important, and this article is so helpful. So if you'd like to read the full blog post, you can head over to etheridgecounseling.com and read that there. And then, of course, if you're live in South Carolina and interested in working with Claire, one of our other therapists here, you can schedule a free consultation through our website. And so be sure to reach out and stay tuned for more.